Have you ever had a dream so vivid it felt real? Imagine walking down a strange hallway, reaching for a door you've never seen before and opening it, only to wake up with something that shouldn't exist in your world. These are three true stories of people who opened the wrong door in a dream and woke up with something they were never meant to have. Story 1. The Key That Didn't Belong. Eric was a 21-year-old college student, the kind of guy who spent most of his time buried in textbooks and late-night study sessions. His life was ordinary, predictable, but everything changed after a dream, one he would never forget. It started on a Wednesday night. Eric had just finished a marathon of studying for his midterms. Exhausted, he collapsed into bed, expecting nothing but a few hours of deep, dreamless sleep. But instead, he found himself standing in a place he had never seen before. It was a hallway, long, impossibly long, stretching into darkness in both directions. The floor was made of black and white tiles, alternating like a chessboard, and the walls were lined with doors. Each door was slightly different, some wooden, some metal, some painted bright colors, others dull and peeling. But the one that drew his attention was different from all the rest. It was black, jet black, with no handle, no keyhole, just a solid, smooth surface. Yet Eric felt it calling to him, not in words but in a strange pull in his chest, as if something behind that door needed him. He reached out, half expecting his hand to pass through like in other dreams, but when his fingers touched the surface, it felt cold. Real. Slowly, the door cracked open on its own, creaking loudly in the otherwise silent corridor. Inside, there was nothing but darkness at first. Then, slowly, a table emerged from the shadows, illuminated by a faint silvery glow. On the table lay a single object, a key. It wasn't like any key Eric had ever seen. It was old-fashioned, ornate, made of silver that gleamed like moonlight. The moment he saw it, an unexplainable dread crawled up his spine. Something told him he shouldn't touch it. But as dreams often go, Eric found himself reaching out anyway. His fingers closed around the key, and a whisper filled the air. Soft, almost inaudible, but chilling enough to freeze his blood. It said his name. Before he could react, the world tilted violently, the floor falling out from under him. He woke up gasping, heart racing, the sound of that whisper still echoing in his head. Eric sat up in bed, clutching his chest. It was just a dream, he told himself. Just a stupid dream brought on by stress and lack of sleep. He got up to grab some water, but then he saw it. There, on his desk, lying on top of his open notebook, was the key. The same silver key from the dream. Eric froze. His mind raced for an explanation. Had he sleepwalked, bought the key at some point, and forgotten? But deep down, he knew. That key didn't belong to him. It didn't belong to this world. He didn't touch it at first. For hours, he just stared at it, half hoping it would vanish like a hallucination. But it didn't. It was real, solid, cold to the touch, and when his fingers brushed against it, the whisper came again, faint, like someone speaking from the other end of a long tunnel. Eric. He dropped the key instantly, heart hammering. His rational mind tried to take control. It's just stress, he told himself again. Lack of sleep. Maybe even a dream within a dream. But the fear wouldn't leave. That night, he couldn't sleep. The key stayed on the desk, gleaming faintly in the moonlight streaming through the window. Every time Eric closed his eyes, he imagined that hallway again, those endless doors, and that voice calling his name. The next morning, Eric decided to get rid of it. He grabbed the key, shoved it in his pocket, and walked straight to the campus lake. Without hesitation, he hurled it into the water and watched it sink into the dark depths. Relief washed over him as he turned to leave. But that night, when he came back to his dorm after class, the key was on his desk, sitting exactly where it had been before. Eric felt his stomach twist. His hands trembled as he picked it up again, desperate to find an answer. And then, out of sheer frustration, he tried something he shouldn't have. He tested it on his door lock. The key slid in effortlessly, into a modern lock it shouldn't have fit. The door clicked open with a sound that sent chills down his spine. That was the moment Eric understood something terrifying. The key could open anything. Over the next few days, his curiosity battled with his fear. He tried it on his roommate's locked drawer. It opened. He tried it on a storage room down the hall. It opened. Every lock, every door, no matter the shape or design, yielded to that key. But every time he turned it, the whisper grew louder. And it wasn't just calling his name anymore. It was saying other things now. Things he couldn't quite make out, like words in a language he didn't understand. Then came the night when everything changed. Eric woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of a door creaking open, his dorm room door. But when he sat up, it was closed, locked even. He reached for the key on his desk, but it was gone. And then, from the darkness, the whisper spoke again. This time, it wasn't faint. It was right behind him. "You opened the door, Eric. Now I can open mine." The next day, Eric's roommate found the dorm empty. His phone was still charging on the desk, his wallet untouched, but Eric was gone. No sign of a struggle, no broken locks. The only thing out of place was the key, lying on the floor, covered in something dark and wet. Campus police investigated, but they never found him. His case went cold within months. The strange part? The key wasn't taken into evidence. It disappeared before they could tag it. Some say it's still out there, waiting for the next person to dream of that black door, waiting for someone curious enough to pick it up. Would you? Story 2. The girl behind the red door. Marissa had always considered herself a light sleeper, someone who could wake up at the smallest sound. But for the past 2 months, her nights had been plagued by something she couldn't explain, dreams that felt too real. They weren't ordinary dreams, the kind that fade away the moment your eyes open. These stayed with her, lingering like a shadow that refused to leave. It started with the hallway. Every time she closed her eyes, she found herself standing in a narrow corridor painted a deep crimson. The walls pulsed faintly like veins beneath skin, and the floor glistened as if freshly polished with something thick and dark. She hated that hallway, but no matter how hard she tried to wake herself up, she couldn't. The air was heavy, pressing down on her chest, making every breath feel like a struggle. And at the end of that hallway was a door. It was a bright, almost glowing shade of red, more vivid than the walls around it. Its brass handle gleamed like it had been polished that very day. Every time she saw it, her heart pounded. She knew instinctively she wasn't supposed to open it. She didn't know how she knew, just that everything inside her screamed not to touch it. But behind the door, there was always a sound, a soft giggle, the laughter of a child. At first, she stood frozen, listening as the giggle echoed down the corridor, playful yet wrong in a way she couldn't name. Then came the voice, a little girl's voice, high and sweet, calling her name. Marissa. The first time it happened, she jolted awake, drenched in sweat, heart racing so fast it felt like it would burst. She tried to convince herself it was just a dream brought on by stress from work. But the next night, she was back in the hallway. The same red walls, the same brass handle, the same voice whispering her name from behind the door. She told herself she wouldn't go near it. But dreams have a way of twisting intentions. By the 5th night, she was standing right in front of the door, her hand trembling inches from the handle. That was when she saw it, the shadow. It moved beneath the crack at the bottom of the door, a small figure pacing back and forth. Then a soft knock. "Please," the little voice said. "Please open the door. I've been waiting for you." Marissa jerked her hand back, her entire body shuddering. She turned and ran down the hallway, but no matter how far she went, the door was always there at the end, waiting for her. She woke up screaming. For a while, she avoided sleep altogether, surviving on coffee and sheer willpower. But eventually, exhaustion won, and the hallway was waiting. This time, the voice sounded sad. "Why don't you want to play with me, Marissa? Don't you like me?" Marissa squeezed her eyes shut and shook her head, even though she knew the girl couldn't see her, or could she? She pressed her hands over her ears, but the voice didn't stop. It was inside her head now, soft and insistent. "Just one game, that's all. Then we can be together forever." She woke up sobbing, her hands clutching the bedsheets so hard her knuckles ached. It was just a dream, she told herself over and over. Just a dream. Until the bruises appeared. It started small, tiny marks around her wrist, like someone had gripped her in her sleep. She brushed it off as maybe pressing too hard on her arm while she slept. But the next morning, the bruises were darker, shaped unmistakably like little fingers. Child-sized fingers. Marissa tried everything. She burned sage, she slept with the lights on, she prayed, though she wasn't even religious. But nothing worked. Every night, she went back to that hallway, and every night, the girl behind the door grew more impatient. One night, the voice changed. It wasn't sweet anymore. It was cold, sharp, laced with anger. "You're being mean, Marissa. You said you'd play with me. You lied." Marissa sobbed, pleading with the air around her. "Please, leave me alone." But the door creaked, just slightly, like something was pushing it open from the other side. And for the first time, she saw an eye peeking through the gap, a milky white eye, unblinking, watching her with hunger. That's when she broke. She couldn't take it anymore. On the 12th night, when the dream came again, she walked straight to the door. Her hands didn't tremble this time. The girl's voice was almost gleeful. "Yes, that's it. Open it." Marissa grabbed the handle. It was warm, almost feverish under her palm. She turned it slowly, the hinges groaning as the door opened inch by inch. The smell hit her first, sweet, cloying, like rotting flowers. Then came the giggle, louder now, right in front of her. "Hi, Marissa." She didn't see the girl clearly, just a blur of pale skin and long black hair before something cold and small wrapped around her wrist. The last thing she remembered before waking up was the sensation of being yanked forward, hard enough to make her scream. When her eyes snapped open, she was in her bed, drenched in sweat. For a brief, blissful moment, she thought it was over. Just another nightmare. But then she felt it, the pressure on her wrist. She lifted her arm slowly, and her stomach dropped. The bruises were fresh, dark, and in the center of her palm was something new, a small, bloody handprint. She scrubbed at it until her skin was raw, but it wouldn't come off. That night, she locked her bedroom door and wedged a chair under the handle. She didn't sleep. She sat in bed clutching a kitchen knife, staring at the door, praying it wouldn't move. At 3:11 a.m., she heard it. A soft knock. 3 times. Then the giggle. "I'm here now, Marissa." No more doors. The next morning, her neighbor called the police after hearing screams. They found Marissa's apartment empty, the door still locked from the inside. The bed was soaked in blood, and on the wall above the headboard, smeared in red, were the words, "Thank you for opening the door." No trace of Marissa was ever found. But sometimes, when a new tenant moves into that apartment, they report strange dreams of a red hallway and a little girl's voice whispering, "I've been waiting for you." Story 3, the room that wasn't there. Mason had just moved into his new apartment, a modest 1-bedroom in an old brick building downtown. It wasn't anything special, but for a freelance graphic designer like him, it was affordable and had just enough space for his desk, computer setup, and a bed. He was happy to finally have a place to call his own. The first night went smoothly. He unpacked a few boxes, set up his computer, and spent an hour scrolling through social media before falling asleep on the couch. It was around 2 a.m. when he had the first dream. In the dream, he was standing in his apartment, except something was wrong. The room looked bigger. The walls stretched farther, the ceiling loomed higher. And there was a door on the far wall, a door that didn't exist in real life. It was plain and white, with a tarnished brass knob, and no matter how hard Mason tried to look away, his eyes kept drifting back to it. He felt drawn to it, like gravity itself was pulling him forward. He didn't want to touch it. Every instinct in his body screamed not to, but his legs moved on their own. His hand gripped the knob, and the moment his skin touched the metal, a chill shot through his body. The door opened slowly, revealing a small room. Its walls were white, cracked and peeling, and the air smelled faintly of mold. In the corner of the room was a wooden chest, old and weathered, its lid shut tight. Mason stared at it, heart hammering in his chest. Then came the sound. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks from inside the chest. He stumbled backward, slamming the door shut so hard the frame shook. He ran to his bedroom and dove under the covers like a terrified child, praying to wake up. And he did. Heart pounding, drenched in sweat, the image of that chest seared into his brain. It was just a dream, he told himself. Moving stress, nothing more. But the next night, it happened again. Same door, same white room, same chest in the corner. Only this time, the knocks were louder, faster, desperate. And then came a voice. "Please, let me out." Mason jolted awake with a strangled scream. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following day, he avoided thinking about it, distracting himself with work. He told himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. But deep down, he felt a gnawing dread because every detail of that dream felt too real. The cracked paint, the smell of mildew, the sound of knuckles rapping on wood. That night, he took melatonin, hoping to sleep without dreaming. It didn't work. He was back in the hallway of his apartment, except it wasn't a hallway anymore. It stretched on endlessly, lined with doors, all of them plain, all of them white. He walked for what felt like hours, trying to wake up, until he saw it. The chest. Sitting right in the middle of the hallway, lid shut tight, it shook violently, as if something inside was trying to break free. "Let me out, Mason." The voice was clearer now, female, soft, almost pleading. Before he could move, the chest slid across the floor toward him, scraping against the tiles with a sound that set his teeth on edge. Mason turned and ran. He didn't look back. He just ran until the hallway dissolved, and he woke up in bed, gasping for air. He sat there for a long time, trembling. He didn't know what was happening to him. Sleep paralysis, stress, or something else? The answer came the next morning. When Mason walked into his living room, his stomach dropped. There, in the center of the floor, was the chest, the same one from his dream. It was real, old and heavy, with iron bands and a rusted padlock. He stood frozen, his mind reeling. How the hell did it get there? He lived on the 5th floor, and the door had been locked all night. He circled it slowly, afraid to get too close. The wood was scarred, as if clawed at from the inside. Knock, knock, knock. Mason staggered back so fast he tripped over his coffee table. The sound had come from inside the chest. "Please." The voice was muffled but unmistakable. "Please let me out." Mason bolted from the apartment, running down the hall like a man on fire. He didn't stop until he was in the parking lot, gulping down the cold night air. He stayed in his car until sunrise. When he finally went back, the chest was still there, silent now. He thought about calling the police, but what would he say? That a dream put a piece of furniture in his living room? They'd lock him up for being insane. So he did the only thing he could think of. He dragged the chest to the elevator, hauled it to the basement, and shoved it into the farthest corner of the storage area. He told himself that was it, out of sight, out of mind. That night, he slept better than he had in weeks. No dreams, no voices, until 3:03 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from his bedroom closet. Heart pounding, Mason grabbed a baseball bat and yanked the door open, empty. Then he heard it again, from under the bed. He dropped to his knees, trembling, and lifted the blanket. Nothing, just dust and shadows. And then, the whisper, right in his ear. "You can't get rid of me, Mason." The next morning, the chest was back in his living room. This time, the padlock was gone. The lid was slightly open, just enough to see the darkness inside. On the floor, smeared in something that looked like dirt or blood, were the words, "Thank you for trying. Now it's your turn." Mason didn't show up for work the next day, or the day after that. When his landlord finally entered the apartment, everything looked normal, except for the chest in the middle of the room. It was shut tight, no lock, no scratches. Inside, there was no sign of Mason, just a piece of paper folded neatly with 3 words written in shaky handwriting. "Don't open it." Dreams are supposed to be safe, fleeting illusions that vanish when we wake. But sometimes a dream can follow you back through a key, a handprint, or a door that never should have existed. So the next time you find yourself standing before a door in a dream, ask yourself one question. If you open it, will you be the one who wakes up, or something else?